What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boys over here at 3 Man Weave. I'm your co-host CJ, here with my lovely co-host ZD. On this Thursday, I had to do a quick, emergency podcast episode because of everything that's been going on.
Basically.
We got busy yesterday. We shot some short form content with Cam. Shout out to a boy, pulled up, and y'all probably be seeing that very soon. But we didn't shoot a podcast, but after all this, the transactions, the trades, obviously the draft finishing up, our dynasty that we ended up doing last night, a lot of things going on in the NBA world and for us as well. So we decided to do an emergency podcast episode. This is on a Thursday. You know, it's middle of the day right now. USA is going to play tonight, so I'm excited for that. But a lot of exciting things to talk about, Z. How are you doing tonight? I know you're a happy camper because of our dynasty draft and all the auto drafts and the sales that people had and the players that you were able to pick up for your roster this upcoming season. But how are you doing today? In this afternoon, you know what I'm saying, a little change of pace for us, shooting in the middle of the day.
Yeah, there it is. Like you said, I appreciate the intro. I'm doing good though, bro. Man, just a lot has happened in the league, and we haven't been able. It's like 3 days. All of this has happened, so we're just like, man, we got to get on the pod. So here we are. But yeah, bro, I'm doing good. You know, I got to see you yesterday in person, which was dope.
Yes, sir.
Just chilling today. Really, wasn't working a ton this week, which is nice. That's always good. And I'm gonna watch the World Cup tonight as well. So I'm doing good, bro. The NBA's been crazy. It's we were just talking, but it's been charades the last couple years with everybody. And today is no different. And really something we were expecting. And we'll get into that transaction a little bit later. But yeah, bro, I'm doing good. You know, how are you feeling, bro? How are you doing?
Feeling good, bro. I was off today, so I slept in a little bit, went to the gym, got some food. Now I'm ready, just ready for the day, ready to chop it up with you about some hoops, and obviously being able to hang out with you yesterday and Cam. It's always good having those moments, I feel like we shoot the podcast a lot, we talk a lot, obviously, but we don't hang out as much in person as much as we'd like to. So anytime we get to do that, it's dope. And shooting the content in person is always you can always feel like the vibes are just a little bit better whenever we're able to do stuff like that. But I'm excited, man. Just ready to get into all the stuff that's happened, seeing what you think. Obviously, AR got extended. A lot of things, So
right.
And then just being able to see what your thoughts are about a lot of these trades that went on. So I'm excited, man. A lot of good things to talk about, and it's it seems like the season literally just ended, and it's already off season, beginning of it, and we're already having a lot of things to talk about. So it's kind of getting me excited just for the next season already, because now it's just all right, a lot of speculations and a lot of things that we have to assume until the first day of the regular season. So I'm excited, man, and it's a lot of stuff to talk about, and I'm ready.
Yeah, bro, it makes the off-season files more interesting, and we had spoken about this because I know you're about to bring it up, but we told the people what we were expecting basically to happen before draft night or on draft night. Obviously, we're rolling back a couple of days. This was because we did the pod on Monday.
Yep.
So this was happening during that time. I think it happened right after the podcast. So I'll let you take it away. We got the little transaction, the details pulled up. So we'll go through that for the people. Obviously, you'll hear my opinion on AR extending, everything like that. But yeah, bro, tell them what happened on that fateful June 22nd.
June 22nd. So I was, I'm on Spotrac. Shout out, no free shout outs, but shout out to y'all. Y'all help us a lot with our content we make. But looking through all the transactions that had been going on, and I had to go back to the 22nd, there was a lot of things that went on. This was the CJ McCollum got extended, Gary Harris got extension, Dusty May is in the building for Dallas. I know, a lot of people are excited for that.
Briefly, yep.
Trae Young ends up signing his 4-year, $212.85 million contract with Washington.
That was
huge, a banger. Didn't expect that. That's shout out to Trae Young. Diarwarwe signs a multi-year deal with the Knicks. Shout out to that. And then this is when the trade started happening, ladies and gentlemen. Julius Randle got traded to the Brooklyn Nets from Minnesota as part of a three-team trade. Chicago traded Mohamed Gay to Minnesota. Minnesota traded 2026 first-round pick to Brooklyn. Brooklyn traded Nicholas Claxton to Chicago, and Brooklyn traded their 2026 second-round pick to Minnesota. So a lot of moving pieces. To kind of sum it up, Julius Randle is on the Nets. Nicholas Claxton is on the Bulls. And Mohamed Gay is on Minnesota. And Minnesota ends up getting a second-round pick from the Nets. What are your thoughts, ZD? What was your reaction to this? Do you think the Julius Randle is going to help the Nets in this time of rebuild?
Yeah, we'll kind of go all over the place for the people too, because I know y'all might want to hear about Trae Young, maybe Dustin May.
For sure.
Julius Randle, when I saw that, bro, when I saw this transaction initially, I thought it was a salary dump. I mean, let's be honest. We spoke about it on this podcast, bro, and I brought it up with the Nas Reed, Anthony Edwards, and Julius Randle paying that trio. We don't really know how that was going to work out. Well, clearly, Minnesota's front office agreed, and they made this decision. They saw what happened in the playoffs last year. They want to get over the hump, and this was clear that they didn't think he was worth the $33 million that he's owed. I think he was on that 3-year, $33.5 million contract. It's $100 million total. So it's not crazy expensive, but you still want to see a $30 million player contribute a little bit more. And we were speaking about this yesterday. It was dope because I got to talk to you about this in person, but not a lot of teams got cap space anymore.
Nope.
The Nets had cap space before this transaction. And now I'd say after it's going to be much tighter, especially with their draft pick that they made. And we'll get into that later in the podcast. But initially I was like, yeah, Minnesota's got to do this salary dump. If anybody was going to go, it was most likely going to be Randle. He was the odd man out. Rudy Gobert's been there so long. Anthony Edwards is the cornerstone. And just last year we were talking about it in the offseason files, how they were building around him. And that's why I introduced it with the NBA has gone into a game of charades, because we really don't know anymore. I think that Nick Claxton for the Bulls is interesting because he was great last year in spurts. Really, and obviously they took Caleb Wilson, and we'll talk about him later too. But like that just gives the Bulls a ton of hope, and their front court is fixed. I'd argue that was the thing they had to work on. They had a ton of guards, logjam at the guard spot. And now they have front court depth with, some younger guys who can contribute immediately. So I think it's good for the Bulls. And then, Gay's a nice player. I don't think he's going to do too much for the T-Wolves necessarily. The transaction they made today was really the key piece. And we'll get into that later too. But yeah, Julius Randle move-in is it is a little bit shocking because he has been, a much better player the last couple years. And the trade with Karl Anthony Towns will go down as one of the more memorable ones that's happened in recent memory, especially with Cat winning a championship. But the Nets get a good front court player. We know that they have a logjam at guard as well. And they still have some cap space, but now they have 2 max players, or you could call Randle a semi-max player. Michael Porter Jr. is a max player. But yeah, the Nets, they're looking for somebody to be able to score, especially at the 4 spot. They're going to be finding their guards and finding out who's going to be on the court. Is that Yegor Denham with Mikael Brown? Is that, Nolan Traore and Yegor Denham? They don't know, but they're trying to figure that out. They just want to solidify their front court. So if I had to give this a rating for the Nets, I'd say a B. And Minnesota, I'd say a B as well. I think getting off the contract, I understand you're not losing a massive piece, or like this isn't going to ruin your chances of winning a championship, because we brought it up on the pod. I don't think that trio was going to win anyway. So the Nets get a front court player who's 20 points per game scorer, somebody who's gotten a lot better in the facilitation department, and then the T-Wolves are able to make a move like they did today because of that.
Because
so
their cap space
I don't mind it.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I'm right there with you, man. It's obviously for me, I am a Julius Randle dynasty owner, so that trade being, going through, I was kind of excited for that, because I feel like we've had, for me specifically, I remember getting Julius Randle, drafting him, and he's kind of inconsistent all year. he had a stretch for me where he was getting me like 50 fantasy points damn near every game. So I saw what he was able to do and what he was able to do for the Timberwolves whenever Ant wasn't healthy, because Ant missed a lot of time this year. But I think him going
He
to the
did.
Nets, like you said, will start to solidify their front court. MPJ, Julius Randle. Now they got to figure out who their center is. Like, I was thinking maybe like Day'Ron Sharp or someone like that, or one of
That's
their
who it'll
other
be.
young guys, that they have. But like you mentioned, they really are jam packed at guards, and that we'll get into it later on to the podcast when we talk about the draft. But they added another guard to the mix, so getting someone that can play that power forward, small forward, maybe even small center at certain times of your lineups in Julius Randle, and then kind of getting,
Mm,
obviously having MPJ there. I think they're going to be one of those teams where they could have like a Charlotte Hornets type of year. They're not really
I
expect them to
agree.
be that good. Their offense is probably going to do really well, especially with a lot of the young guards. Michael Brown that they just drafted, and a lot of the bright spots that we saw. Obviously, Nicholas Claxton getting traded, that was a huge
Hmm.
piece to their offense and defense. But getting Julius Randle, that the spacing, MPJ. I feel like that's going to be a cool little front court, like maybe like underrated type of scoring duo.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
I'm excited, man. I really like it for the Nets because, like you mentioned, and we
I
talked about it,
agree.
the 3-2-1 rule is kind of changing how a lot of these teams are going about how they're constructing their rosters now, because you don't want to be bad. You want to be able to compete. And I think with that move, not saying that they're gonna be a solidified play-in or playoff team, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Nets this upcoming year are a potential play-in team, and that's kind of where they're
I
aiming to
agree.
be with this new rule that they have implementing for the lottery chances and whatnot. So like it for them, and I
Mm,
like it for the Bulls too. Honestly, getting Nicholas
yeah,
Claxton, you mentioned it, they've been missing centers, front court depth ever since that trade. With Vucevic, or yeah,
yeah,
Vucevic to
yeah,
the to
yeah.
the to the Celtics, and it's like they're getting a young player, athletic, can rim run very well. Obviously, we know Josh Giddey is one of the best, passers, playmakers in this league. Pretty much, able to average a triple double for a whole season. And if you're getting athletic, Caleb Wilson, we'll talk about him later, and that's another person I was able to pick up for my dynasty. But Caleb Wilson,
Yeah,
Montas, Nick Claxton. I can see what the Bulls are trying to build, and it
giddy.
feels like it's giddy, of course. And then obviously, Rob Dillingham, Anthony, like they have so
Yeah, they
much
got
going
like they
on
have
to where
something.
they're it's gonna be able to stick. You got front court depth, and that's what you were missing. You have a lot of good, a lot of guards that are trying to prove themselves in this league, see if they can contribute to winning some games. And I think that might be another team as well that can take that leap this upcoming year. So it's exciting, like that everyone is trying to make moves now. Obviously, Timberwolves getting rid of Randall, Nets getting rid of Claxton, send him to the Bulls, and then the Nets being able to get someone in Julius Randle that's all NBA type of player, on his at his best. So we'll see what that looks like. I'm excited for it though. So that was one of the
Yeah,
huge
bro.
trades. One of the huge trades that day.
Yeah, and I want to bring up something because we talked about it yesterday in person, but like the CBA and just how they're changing, how Adam Silver, you brought up the 3-2-1 lottery rule, but now all the teams have to spend, they're to
Mhm.
the salary floor, so
Yep.
you got to spend money anyway. And
Yep.
to CJ's point, you no longer can be bad, so we're going to see more transactions like this. And I know we haven't brought him up yet. I'll probably bring him up more in the LaMelo conversation, but John Morant, somebody who's most likely going to be traded. You're going to see that happen as well. And somebody might sign him to a multi-year deal just to fill cap space because you have to spend it now.
Hmm.
So don't be surprised to see that. But yeah, Julius Randle, I mean, the Nets, they take on that contract. You brought up Nick Claxton, the Bulls, they fill out their front court. And then obviously the T-Wolves, they dump the contract. They get Gabe, who's, like we said, isn't really going to play. But still, yeah, that was one of the more interesting trades that day.
Hmm. And this was the one. This was the one that had the world shook. It's what we've been waiting for the last 4 months. It feels like, but Giannis Antetokounmpo got traded to the Miami Heat from Milwaukee
Shocker.
with Bobby Portis for Tyler Hero, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Khalil Ware, Kasparas Shakachonis, Nate Ament, 2030 first round pick. Milwaukee has a right to swap with Miami as well. 2031 first round pick, unprotected, and a 2033 first round pick that is also unprotected with a 2033 second round pick. Z, thoughts, concerns, reactions? What did
I
you think?
mean, I mean, yeah. I mean, now we know that pick was Nate Ament.
Right.
At the time, we
It
didn't
was
know
not.
who would be,
Yeah.
but it's interesting for both teams. I like it for Miami though. They got to do something, and I appreciate Pat Riley in the front office is a guy he's always been somebody who wants to be around superstars. He will go out and find superstars. We know he had that big three with Miami and was no stranger to that. He wants people in the building who can contribute at a high level. We know Giannis is a Hall of Fame player. Milwaukee took advantage of the fact that Miami is looking to do that. They know Miami is desperate. You could say they're desperate. Seeing where Bam was on his timeline and some of their other pieces that unfortunately they had to let go of. Jaime Jaquez was like somebody I was like, oh,
Yeah,
that one hurts. I think Tyler Hero, okay, but when I saw that, I'm like, ooh, you're giving up a lot.
Yeah.
But Milwaukee pounced on it. I like it from Milwaukee too. They get all of that value, especially with the picks, but they're trying to compete now. You just brought it up with the Nets. Milwaukee's not going to want to be bad next year either. So I think they're less focused on where those picks fall and more focused on the now, which is the Nate Ament, Jaime Jaquez Jr., the Tyler Hero piece of it all. And to me, that's a great haul. We know Tyler Hero's from Milwaukee, Wisconsin boy, somebody who has a chip on his shoulder, to be honest with you guys. At times he's a fringe 50, 40, 90 player, but Milwaukee, we heard Jaylen Brown was in the trade talks as well. They had two offers from the Heat and from the Celtics, and they decided to go with the Heat's offer just because it was a little bit more juicy for their future. So for me, Miami gets a C plus. I don't think it really is going to lead to a championship, and that's the ultimate question, right? Like I think it's a big headline, and we see that, and people were hyped to see Giannis in a new place, and we spoke about it on the pod. We foresaw this happening, so it's not a shock to us, but I don't think it's going to lead to a chip. We saw the Wizards get a lot better a couple days ago. We know the Hawks, the Magic, the Pistons, the Knicks, the Cavs. We went through the East yesterday together in person. We couldn't figure out who would be the top 10.
Nope.
Even the Hornets are still going to be competitive. The Nets will most likely be competitive. The Bulls, right?
Celtics.
So there's a lot of Celtics, of course. So there's a lot of teams in the East that are going to be competitive, and I believe that Miami is desperate. That's why I said that word. So they looked at the landscape. They're like, what can we do to give us a better opportunity to do that in the playoffs? And that's the big caveat, is just getting Giannis to the playoffs. And they still got Davion Mitchell. They still have a couple pieces that they can use, but letting go of Khalil Ware, Hero, Jaquez, that's a big haul from Milwaukee, who desperately needs centers. They got some front court depth with Ware now. Nate Ament's a great shooter. They obviously picked him, and then Hero and Jaquez Jr., they're some of the more efficient scorers that we have in this league. Jaquez Jr. was in the running for Sixth Man of the Year. Hero's won Sixth Man of the Year, if I'm not mistaken. He's also been an All-Star. So he's this was no surprise, but for Miami, it needs to pay dividends because you gave up a lot, and Milwaukee gets to restart. And I believe that Milwaukee's in a better spot now than Miami is. Miami's in a win now situation, and the Cavs, the Pistons, and the Knicks and the Celtics are going to have a lot to say about that, especially if Jaylen Brown's still on the Celtics. We'll see if Jaylen Brown gets traded. That's another added storyline, by the way.
Yep.
But yeah, I was not shocked by it. Like I said, Heat C plus, but for Milwaukee, it's a B plus. It's a great haul. They should have traded Giannis a year ago, but I still think for where his value is at now, they were able to do pretty good on the return. And going through each player individually, I just spoke pretty highly about all of them. They're all pretty good players,
Yep.
especially when they're healthy. Tyler Hero has some injury question marks, if you want to say that, but I'd argue Hawkes Jr. and Kalel Ware they're just as excited about because of their youth.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Hero is young too, but he's a little older, not too
Mm-hmm.
much older, but you get my point. But
Yeah.
I liked it. Giannis wanted to force his way out of Milwaukee, and Wes Eden said that there would be, the owner of the Bucks said that there would be a deal done before the draft or during the draft, and no lies were told. I'll end it off that way. We said it out on the pod, so I'm a little bit shocked it was in this way. I didn't know who like what the return was going to be,
Mm-hmm.
but now we know it was all those picks and some of those players. So if I'm Milwaukee, I'm pretty joyous about this return. And if I'm Miami, I'm figuring out every possible way. They're probably going to make a couple
They
moves
got to,
to
yeah. Because
yeah to like support this move,
yeah,
but
because
we'll see.
I like when I first saw it, obviously I think just seeing Giannis go to a team that we've been waiting to hear for, like I mentioned, the past couple months was exciting. The fact that it was Miami, I think it's cool for Miami because I feel like they're always in the conversation to get a star, right? It was Damian Lillard, it was KD. It's always someone, right? Like that's in the free agency, like, oh, they'll probably go to Miami. Donovan Mitchell, you know what I mean? Like these type of players that have an opportunity. Miami is like a pretty nice destination to go for a star. They haven't really been able to
Yeah,
do it since Braun. So the fact that they've had Shaq, Braun, and then now they have Giannis. I feel like Miami does. Obviously, shout out to Pat Riley being able to get all those guys, but incredible. I feel like the type of player that Giannis is, the way that he's built his career, very blue collar, putting in the work. I think that would be a great fit for Miami in the culture. The Heat culture that we always bring up, and we've been able to see what that's been for them for since we've been alive, really. So it's been dope to see, or it's dope to see Giannis in that type of environment. But like you mentioned, I don't think this is going to lead them to a championship at this very moment. We don't know all the other pieces that they're going to add, but with the roster that they had, they gave up a lot. And shout out, like you mentioned, shout out to the Bucks for capitalizing on the Heat wanting to make this huge of a move, because the Heat,
yeah,
all the guys that they've sent them were all their good young prospects. You know what I mean? Obviously, like you said, Davion Mitchell's still on the roster. They have Andrew Wiggins, obviously Bam, uh, and then they have a lot of the other good young talents. But these were their main key contributors to the roster. Like you mentioned, Tyler Hero. Say what you want about him when he's healthy, though. He's getting 20 points a game. You know what I mean? Kalel Ware's
yeah,
one of their best young prospects they had this season. It looked like he was starting to get his 3-point shot down, and putting him on that roster too. Jaime Jaquez, like you just mentioned, a Swiss Army knife, and then obviously whatever Nate Ament ends up being turning into, like that's a great haul, and they still have two other first round picks that they have that are unprotected from the Heat. So they have a lot of assets, a lot of things that they were able to recoup for Giannis, and
yeah.
I'm glad they were, because Giannis, we know the type of player Giannis can be, and I think that is why Miami decided to make this move, and it's dope to see because we haven't really seen them do this in a while. They've been really stagnant with the rosters that they had. They've been good enough.
Massive.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They've been good enough. That's what the Heat have been, and I think this was their okay. We can be one of the best teams in the East if we get Giannis and then build a team around him. So I like the move. As of right now, though, I don't really see them doing that. They don't really have a lot of playmaking, someone that could create off the dribble besides Giannis, and then of course Bam, and that is however you play it, probably 4 or 5. Bam going to be playing a small 5, or would Giannis be playing a big 3? I know Bam doesn't really like to play the 5, so what does that look like? And obviously they play very similar with how they're trying to score, mid range, get into the basket. How is that going to look, clogging the paint and whatnot? So getting someone that could play make is my top priority if I'm the Heat. But I feel like they've always done a really good job of getting undrafted free agents. They've been getting good guys that get overlooked a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if we hear about another player coming up that ends up getting some good run. But as of right now, like Z said, I'd probably give their move probably like a B minus. I think Giannis is a great player. I think they're going to be a good regular season team, but for what they're trying to do, for where Giannis is at in his career, trying to get to another championship, I just don't know if the roster's ready at that point yet. And then obviously for the Bucks, that give it like a B plus, like Z said, maybe even like an A minus, because it's just so the youth movement that they have now. It was something where they didn't have everyone. They didn't have anyone to be able to get a lot of run time. Kyle Kuzma's obviously Kevin Porter Jr. did great. Ryan Rollins did great. Miles Turner didn't have that great of a season. So just getting more youth movement into the building in Milwaukee, I think it'll be good for them. Seeing what that can turn into. And then obviously with, like we keep mentioning, the new rule that they implemented, you want to have a competitive team, and not saying this team's going to be great, but it could be exciting. And as a Bucks fan, I think that's really all that you can hope for with getting rid of, one of your best franchise players. So obviously it sucks seeing Giannis leave. I don't know how Bucks fans are. I don't really know that much. I don't talk to them, but I'm assuming it sucks seeing, one of your best franchise player, leaving, but seeing everything you got in return and what is to look forward to, I think that is the silver lining for the Bucks. So I like the move for both, like it a little more for the Bucks, but I see what the Heat were willing to do, taking the shot on Giannis and, potentially being one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference this upcoming year.
Oh, 100%. And I was just looking at their SPO track, and Giannis and Bam are, over $110 million a year for that duo. How are you feeling about that?
It's very pricey. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like,
that's what I thought too. I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's a very expensive for realistically. Like, do you think that team can make the Eastern Conference Finals? I think that team's like a second round exit. I'm not gonna lie.
I agree at best.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as of right now, I think CJ and I, it's like a C plus for Miami. Right now, they just have to build around Giannis and do a little bit more in that department. But yeah, owing $110 million a year between Bam and Giannis, that's a hefty price tag to pay, and not a lot of shooting.
Yeah,
in a league that desperately needs shooting. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, that's we know Davion Mitchell is still there. Jovic, somehow they didn't give him up. I don't know how that happened. Instead it was Yakuchonis. Mm-hmm. I would ask for Jovic too, but he's still there. But yeah, they're gonna have some work to do behind the scenes to build out this roster, because that does scare me a little bit.
How much cap space do they still have left?
I'm not too sure because the transactions are pending.
Okay, gotcha.
But I can see.
I was just curious because, like, because obviously they got Bobby Portis too. That's someone that we really haven't even brought up. Miami, at least. I feel like that would be another front court depth that would be cool to have for them. Shooter. But yeah, besides that, it's if they don't have a lot of cap space, it's really what they're going to be able to do. With who they end up drafting, I forgot. They had like a second round pick, I believe, right? Miami.
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember who they took though.
They got Ryan Conwell. He was a second round pick. So
okay.
They did not really adding much, especially if they're not gonna have the cap space to bring in anyone. Obviously, signing trades, trade swaps, whatever.
I don't think they're in their first apron.
Okay.
They are in the luxury tax, obviously, but I believe that Miami actually has some cap space.
Okay.
Especially with all of their outgoing contracts. They gave up a lot more players than they took back, which is nice.
That is true.
But they're still gonna have to figure it out. And I don't know if there's a ton of players available who are. We'll see what Miami does over the next few weeks. Their front office has a lot of work to do. But for Milwaukee, I like this path.
Me too.
It's clear. We've talked about this a lot, but during the offseason files, we get into the nitty gritty and we go behind the scenes and their contracts and stuff. And Milwaukee, it just never really seemed clear to me what they were doing. But now there's like a clear direction. You're not going to be a championship team probably next year, but you have some good pieces. with the future coming in. So I like it, bro. I think this is it was one of the more interesting trades that we'll have in the last 10 years. So it's definitely nothing can trump the Luka trade, right? But
Yeah,
yeah,
no.
seeing Giannis. But I did not expect Giannis to not be a Buck. I will say that if you would have asked me a few years ago, I would have said, nah, he'll probably retire as a Buck.
Yeah,
So
that is true.
there you go.
We don't
There you
have
go.
much of those players anymore, man. Just Steph right now
I
at
know,
this moment.
bro. Just Steph, really, just sticking it out with one team. It's kind of a lost art, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Just because you get traded, you don't have a choice, so
Yeah,
it's not even necessarily a player's fault. But like Luka Doncic
right.
it wasn't his choice. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think it was a good segue into the draft that happened on Tuesday night. It was
Mm-hmm.
that was at the 23rd, so it was kind of the day after the 22nd, which was a pretty crazy day. Obviously, Trae Young extension. I don't know if you want to add some thoughts, but we did touch on that for a second. But again, a little bit of an overpay, but with the new rules of the CBA, you gotta reach the salary floor. So the Wizards kind of had to figure it out. Who were they going to pay? Who did they want to pay? Was it going to be Anthony Davis? Was it going to be Trae Young? And they decided it was going to be Trae Young. AD, we've seen a couple rumors that he may want to be traded again. The decision to take AJ with the number one pick, which we'll get into in a second, also changes some things about that contract. It doesn't look as bad because AJ DeBonsa is on a rookie contract, but yeah, I mean, paying Trae Young 53 million or whatever it is with a player option.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. He can opt into that on any team because I don't know. Washington, you must see something that the rest of us really don't. And it's not to hate on Trae Young. I think he's a great player offensively. But he really only fits this roster. And luckily enough, Washington is, they have the pieces to be able to make this transaction make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's we talked about it a little bit yesterday. Seeing how much he got paid, this and that. Obviously, he played what was it, like 6 games for the Wizards, and we were surprised he did
Yeah,
that. So I think it seemed like it was a little bit of something that behind closed doors a little bit. Like Trae Young was like kind of told him that like, hey, I want to be here. I believe in what y'all have going on. Obviously, Trae Young and what he's been these past couple of seasons, injuries and not as efficient as he used to be, all these things getting tossed up in the air. It's I feel like he saw what the Wizards were building and he wanted to be a part of it. So they kind of rewarded him in a sense and, promised him all this money. Is he worth it? Not at this moment, but I feel like his potential and with this roster that they have, like you just mentioned, he lacks what he lacks on the defensive side of the ball. This roster kind of has the ability to kind of make up for that, not saying
I agree.
essentially what the Knicks have, but they have long athletic forwards. They have Alex
Yeah.
Sarr. Obviously, he ended
Star,
up getting,
yeah.
I think he has a surgery he's getting over, but him when he comes back, AD if he's, decides to stay with the team, AJ now, Keyshawn George, Trey Johnson, a lot of good
Mm-hmm.
pieces around him to where if he could just go in there, be what he has been for his whole career, which, I'm pretty sure he's going to still be able to get you, 20 and 9, 20 and 8, whatever it may be. He's that type of player, but it's just seeing it on a new roster. I think he just needed a new start. And you can't really, it's like a picture, story written for the Wizards in a sense because, they haven't really had stars since the John Wall, Bradley Beal era. Obviously, Russ and Porzingis, they had good years there, but not really a player that they're building a franchise around for the foreseeable future. With Trae Young getting this contract, it kind of shows that they're willing to pay him this amount of money, and now they're willing to build around him with AJ now. So I like it, man. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe it's just very like recency bias. I see the type of player that AJ is probably going to become, and I know the type of player that Trae Young is. So it's just if they can, the timelines, if they can, get sped up a little bit for Trae Young getting back into his form, and then AJ kind of arising on the scene, hopefully like how Cooper Flag did. And, that if you tell me that's what happens, I would assume that the Wizards are probably a play-in team at that point. You know what I mean? So it's
I agree.
exciting features, but a lot of money for Trae Young. And I get why people are, talking about it, because it's a lot of money for a player that hasn't been as good as we know he can be. So they were willing to bet on him, pay him this money up front. And then this could be one of those contracts where we look at it in, 3-4 years. Oh, wow. What? The Wizards are only paying Trae Young X amount of money. They're about to pay AJ this $300 million. You know what I mean?
Whatever.
So whatever it is.
Yeah,
So
sure.
it could be, if everything goes right, and that's how it's the world that I'm imagining in my head, because I can see what Washington's trying to do. It could be, a great pickup for them. Obviously, just having a franchise piece, and it's something that they haven't had in a while, because I feel like Washington has been that destination for a player to really develop their game, or it's they draft their players and they end up shipping them off and they end up doing better, like the Ruiz, like the Denny's, or you have them with the players that go to this team, get better, and then get signed by another team, like the Russes and Kristaps Porzingis. They haven't been, okay, I want to stay here in Washington and build something. I think that's finally where they're at in their timeline. So exciting for their future. And, obviously getting the number 1 pick, it's kind of hard not to be hopeful and joyous of the situation that they're in. So I'm excited for that. Honestly, I like it. It's a lot of money for Trae Young, but I think it'll be all worth it in the future. Is it worth it right now? Yes, because they were going to have to spend the money anyways, like Z mentioned, but it's very, you don't want to have to spend that much money on a player that hasn't really proved a lot, but I get it for the situation that they're in, just because who else were they going to pay that much money at this moment? They don't really have AD, but he doesn't even want to be there. So I think it kind of, it left them with like a situation where it's like, well, we might as well pay Trae Young. He wants to be here. Seems like he's involved. He's engaged. He's a point guard, and we need that. We have a lot of forwards. We have a center, and now we have a guard and Trey Johnson. So it's like kind of a picture perfect situation for Trae Young. So I hope it goes well, and I'm excited to see what they end up being.
Me too. Yeah, bro, I like that take, and I don't know, I feel like it's a good segue though. So on June 23rd, we had the NBA draft. This draft was crazy, man. To be honest with you, the 2026 NBA draft has been something that people have been waiting on for a few years now. Honestly, Wembanyama, we know, is a generational talent. He came into the league a few years back, Cooper Flag last year. But this draft had a ton of guards and forwards that a lot of GMs and analysts really, really liked. The 2026 NBA draft was just filled with talent. So CJ and I will go through the recap of that right now. Don't forget that we have it out on the website. The recap of the draft is on the website. The link will be in the description, so you guys can click on it and read through some of the takes that we got. We'll also give you a grade. So we'll go through like the first 10. We'll do the lottery picks. We'll make it quick. First 14 picks, and we'll get out of here, and we'll talk about the transaction that happened today, man. That was unbelievable. But CJ, you want to take it away for the people? You want to start on Washington, and I'll do Utah.
Yeah, man, for sure. So we have, with the number 1 pick, it was no surprise to us. It was a little bit of a conversation for people to have, but number 1 pick, the Washington Wizards select AJ Dembonsa, BYU forward. He's 6'9.5", 25 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 51% from the field, 33% from 3. We talked about AJ. We've been talking about him for, a couple years now. Honestly, we saw the type of player that he was in college, able to be one of the best scorers as a freshman. Cam got him in the dynasty. It's very hopeful for the Wizards, man. Like we just talked about him, like very high on their future, and Trae Young and AJ, Trey Johnson, all these players. I think it was a perfect fit for them. Obviously, they could have gone Darren Peterson if they wanted to, but I think AJ was the consensus number one pick in my eyes. He's a 3-level scorer. He has the size. He has the ability to play on both sides of the ball. He can score on all 3 levels, like I just mentioned. But I think it's also his playmaking can improve, but for his size already, he's almost an averaging four assists a game. He has pretty much almost a complete game, if we're being honest. He's one of those players that he probably could have came from high school into the league. That's the type of player that he is. So like
NBA
we mentioned,
ready.
We'll give grades as well. I think this is A+ for them. I don't see any other real reason for them to be anything less because of the type of prospect that AJ is, and he could potentially be a Cooper Flag, even like no one wouldn't compare to a Wemby yet, because obviously Wemby is on a different level, but in the talks,
he's different.
In the talks, the number one picks, we'll probably do 10 years for this decade, and he'll be, in the mix for being one of the best for sure. So AJ Debonsa, number one pick, Washington Wizards, you get an A+ from me.
Yeah, I like that, man. And like you said, he's been the consensus for us, and he's 6'9", the most NBA ready, like you said, 3-level scorer. And for me, it's the confidence. We brought it up, but the motor on and off the court, the personality is big. Washington hasn't really been able to draft a player like this since John Wall. It was a pretty easy call, and they were able to make it. Darren Peterson was obviously in the conversation, as he deserves to be. But, I mean, AJ's just he's a different player, man. And when you have the opportunity to take a player like this, you don't miss. The Wizards did not miss. It's an A+ from me as well. It's a franchise-altering decision that Washington made a few days ago, and I'm really excited to see how this shakes up the rest of the NBA because, you said it on the pod, but the Wizards could be a play-in team, potentially a playoff team, depending on the high end of their outcome. And it's just we haven't said that in a long time. So Washington fans, we know you're excited. CJ and I believe that this is one of the best picks that you've ever made in your franchise's history. So enjoy it. But yeah, man, just AJ's going to be. He should make an impact from day one. He'll have a big roll out the gate. Expect 30 minutes. Expect Trae Young to be giving him the ball. Expect them to play through him at times. For me, another thing that I love about his game is his ability to get downhill and go to the line, man. I think that translates a lot in the NBA, and his skill set is already so developed, similar to this next guy that we're about to get into. But yeah, man, AJ Debonsa, clearly the number one pick, and you get an A+ Washington from both CJ and I. But going on to the number 2 pick, man, we got Darren Peterson, man, going to the Utah Jazz. This is another, I wouldn't say, it's not a surprise at all. These, AJ Debonsa and Peterson have been 1 and 2 for a long time. But Utah, they got an opportunity to, I don't know if you saw this, but they got to interview him. He ended up changing his mind. They interviewed him before the draft. So I know we had a pod where we said he didn't do one, and he didn't at the time. But literally a day before the draft, he ended up interviewing with them because he knew there was an opportunity that most likely he was going to Utah. So they were able to grab Darren Peterson here. The cramping issues at Kansas didn't really hinder him too much. He was still able to average 20 a game, shoot almost 40% from deep, almost average 5 assists. But he's essentially a superstar waiting to happen, man. Brian Windhorst of ESPN said that he looks like a young Kobe. His body. They're a little bit skeptical of how he's going to be able to play off the ball with Keontae George. We know Keontae George likes to pound the air out of the ball and run pick and roll, and we know Darren Peterson's going to want to do the same. So we'll see how that's a 1A, 1B type of offensive hub. But I believe Darren Peterson's definitely the second best player in this draft, and most likely another potentially generational guard. His athleticism is another thing that really jumps out the page to me because he's somebody who can dunk on you, but we're going to see if he's able to score off the dribble. If it's able to translate, we know he's probably the best scoring guard in this draft. So it's a no-brainer for Utah here. You slot them right into the 2 spot, or you could even have them run the point some days. They got Jaren Jackson Jr., Lowry Markkanen, Ace Bailey, Walker Kessler. They have all of these pieces, and Darren Peterson is just a cherry on top of that. So if I had to give it a grade, this is another, I'd say A-. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get DeBonsa, and we'll see if it's an A+. The reason I give it an A- is just because the injury history and the question marks, I guess you could say. There was a lot of questions surrounding Peterson, but still a great pick. I was able to get him on my dynasty, so we'll see how his career turns out, and that's kind of crazy in its own right, because I had no business getting him with the number 7 pick, I think it was, and I was able to scoop him up. So as long as the cramping issues don't set in the NBA and those NBA doctors take good care of Darren Peterson, you could potentially expect him and AJ to average 20 out the gate. We saw Con Knipple and Cooper Flagg have a rookie of the year battle. I wouldn't expect nothing less from those 2 cats as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said it perfectly, bro. Darren Peterson, 2nd pick. I feel like that was kind of expected. It was always AJ, Darren, or some people said Darren, AJ, but Jazz were in an interesting position because it's whoever the Wizards didn't select, that's who they're going to draft. And that is no slight to either one of these players. It's just how great both of these players are. It's, whoever went 1, the next person will go 2. And I think that's going to be a cool dynamic for them to have throughout their whole career, especially they've always been, like you said, that's always been who it was. It's always been Darren and AJ ever since they were little kids, running through the rankings, AAUs, Peach Jams, all these, this and that's, like, it's always been them 2. And like you mentioned, his ability, his athleticism for sure, but it's just his knack, feel for the game. He just is so smooth. He's taking jumpers that, like, oh, why is he shooting that? And he's knocking them down. Has the confidence. He doesn't show it as much as AJ does, and isn't as the charismatic type of player that you would expect your franchise cornerstone to be. But I think he just has his game speak for itself. And obviously he's very talented, very athletic, can play both sides of the ball. He has the ability to do that. The injuries are a major concern for me. I don't know if it's just one of those, he was kind of like we talked about it. He was just trying to get through the college season because he knew that he was probably going to be a top 2 pick realistically in this draft. And I don't know if it's just him ready to get to the league, but for some reason, I have a feeling that the injuries and stuff, the cramping at least, isn't probably going to be something that he has to worry about in the NBA. Maybe other injuries, but I think that was just a one-off thing that just happened to him, like a freak injury, because we hadn't really heard anything about that type of thing for him leading up to this point. So I think with the NBA, you have the right trainers, you have the medical staff to take care of him. They're going to take care of Darren Peterson. I think he's going to be great, and it's going to be one of those dynamic rookie of the year races. And honestly, with any of these plays that we're about to talk about, they're probably going to be in the mix for it just because of how loaded it is. But Darren Peterson, great offensively, has the potential to be even better on, just as good on defense too, with his athletic ability. And then pairing him next to Keontae George, we saw what he was able to do. So that dynamic is going to be a little different for him to have to, play off of, but I think he'll be able to fit right in. Obviously was more of the lead guard at Kansas, but I feel like with him, Keontae George, Darren Peterson, that little backcourt duo is going to be a problem for a lot of defenses in the NBA coming soon. So excited. I would give it, like you said, I'd probably give it an A, because obviously I'm a little worried about the injuries, but if that's just something that, you're willing to bet on and he ends up still doing what we expect him to do, I don't really see it, obviously not an A+ because it wasn't AJ, sadly, but Darren Peterson up there with him as well, 1A, 1B, like I've been saying all year. So I'd give it an A.
He seemed relieved to get drafted too. He's just, big smile on his face. And I think he waited a long time for this opportunity. And Lisa Salters was talking to every one of the picks, and I think he's just thankful to finally get there. And I think, in my opinion, the stuff that happened at Kansas is behind him, and I'm glad he's on my team. So hopefully just get the highest end outcome for him, bro. If he turns into the next Kobe, I ain't mad at that.
Yeah, bro, that'd be crazy. But going into the next pick, the number 3 pick in the 2026 draft, the Memphis Grizzlies selected Cameron Bruiser out of Duke University. This was the fact that he went down to 3. I think it says how great these other two guys are, because Cameron Boozer was
Yo,
incredible.
bro.
If we're being honest, he was I think Naismith Player of the Year, if I'm not mistaken. He averaged
Mm-hmm.
a double double, but Memphis jumped Chicago to grab Boozer at 3, and it is a great pick. Like I was just mentioning, he is a physically dominant freshman who led college basketball in box plus minus and shot nearly 40% from 3 on high volume. The Grizzlies have been missing a reliable big man since trading away their front court pieces, and Boozer fills that void immediately. Pair him with Ja, and Memphis is suddenly very interesting again. Like we just mentioned, all the stuff that they've been going through. They traded away Desmond Bane, Triple J. Now they have all these picks. They get Cameron Boozer, who will be able to be their forward, locking it in, and then Josh Giddey, Zach Edey, sorry, manning down the paint whenever he's healthy. That front court is building out, man. Gigi Jackson, Jalen Wells,
Yeah,
Ty Jerome, Ja,
I
Scottie
like
Pippen
it.
Jr. I see the vision. You know what I mean? Cameron Boozer is an incredible player. I think he can impact your team from the very beginning, and the type of player just has a great feel for the game, is able to, play basketball the right way. You know what I mean? He's not the flashy dunking on you, crossing you over like we mentioned about AJ and Darren, but he just knows how to get to his spots. He's athletic enough as well to where I think people are going to underestimate his athleticism in the NBA, but he could dunk on you too. So, and the fact that his 3-point shot, it was on the volume that he was shooting at, he was almost a 40% 3-point shooter. As a player that really isn't a 3-point shooter, I think that says how skilled and how ready for the league he is as well. Being 6'9" as well, 250. So he's not a skinny forward. He's one of a big body, NBA ready. And I think he'll help the Memphis Grizzlies, with Zach Edey and, manning down their paint in the front court. I think it's a good pick for Memphis. I know we talked about, I think it
Yeah,
was Caleb Wilson or him. I like this pick for either one, but Cameron Boozer on the Grizzlies, I like it. Like, it's a good pick for them. Give it
it's a no
like a
brainer.
B plus.
Yeah, I was gonna say A. I really like it for where their timeline is, and again, led the all college players in box plus minus. That's including freshmen all the way to senior. You said it, bro. Very skilled for his size, and for me, what I love is his rebounding ability. The 10.2 rebounds. We know Memphis is kind of the rugged West. They like players who can guard and who can rebound, dive on basketballs. And I believe Cameron Boozer is going to be a hustle guy, somebody who can grab you, 2-3 offensive rebounds in a row, and he's gonna buy you extra possessions, which is super useful in the NBA today. And obviously, his dad is Carlos Boozer, so he's gonna have some sort of offensive touch and some sort of offensive repertoire, which Zach Edey lacks. I think Cam Boozer can make up for that. Zach Edey's not a gifted post player. He could do a couple drop steps, but Cameron Boozer would hit you with a shimmy fade. And I'm expecting a couple, low post touches for him. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he can develop as a passer as well, averaging 4 assists in college. I believe that might be able to be 4 or 5 assists, 6 assists as he continues to improve as a passer. The only question is what happens with Ja. If Ja leaves, they don't have a point guard, which will make it interesting. We'll see. He cannot initiate offense, which is the one thing that Darren Peterson and AJ DeBonsa can do really well. Cam Boozer will not be initiating your offense. So you do need to have somebody to give him the ball, which is probably why you gave it a B plus. So I can understand that. But if he's able to turn himself into a creator, which I would say is his weakness point, this is going to be one of the steals of the draft. To get him at 3, this is another potentially generational talent. So, and this is no under talking there. So no understatement. So I think it's an A. It's an A. We'll see. I know it's an A. Hopefully his career turns out properly. We will see. It's dependent on what happens with Ja. If they trade Ja and they get somebody who isn't as good as I think Ja was like, he'll get what is he, 7, 8 assists in his career.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't get a point guard who can really facilitate as well as Ja, then Cam Boozer might struggle more in his rookie year than normal. But if Ja's still on the team and he's able to throw him lobs and get him into his spots, then this pick will be a plus.
Mm-hmm.
So I like it. But man, moving on to number 4, we got the Chicago Bulls. They selected Caleb Wilson from USC. Caleb, we've spoken about him a lot too on this podcast. We know Chicago slid a little bit to 4, but they ended up getting their top prospect. We saw after, I think Sham said that Caleb Wilson only interviewed with Chicago. Chicago did the math. And what's interesting about this, CJ, is like the first couple picks are pretty in a row. Everybody was able to do the math and kind of figure out who they were going to take based on who other people were taking if you weren't the Wizards. But yeah, he's a 6'10 forward who can score inside and out. He can rebound extremely well. The defensive metrics, the measurables for him is what's the most interesting, I think, about his game. We know he's going to be able to give you the athleticism and be able to score downhill, but his defense is really intriguing. He has the chance to be a top 10 defender in the NBA if he's able to fully build out into his body and his length. But Caleb Wilson is somebody who the Bulls have been waiting for somebody like this. He's more charismatic off the court. He has a high motor as well. He loves the game. And again, he bolsters their front court. There was something that they were pretty weak on after they traded Vucevic, like you brought up earlier. But his efficiency numbers at UNC were elite. Shot 56, 57% from the floor, averaged almost 20 points a night. If he can get a 3-point shot, he's going to be one of the more deadlier players in this draft. And we know that's going to come along. So at 6'10", 6'11", it's a perfect fit next to Matas and Josh Giddey. So I really love this pick. I'd have to give it an A+.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, bro. I'm very high on Caleb Wilson. Got him in my dynasty draft, like ZD just mentioned. So excited for that. I was needing another forward, and for the Bulls specifically, we talked about the Bulls getting Nick Claxton in that trade earlier, but them getting Caleb Wilson, this was they fell to him. He fell to them, and it was not even like we'll just take this guy because it's who fell to us. It's because they actually liked him as a player. They saw his talent. That's just how great this draft was, bro. The top 4 picks, they all could have potentially gone number 1 in any other draft, like, to put in perspective. And with Caleb Wilson, like you said, the measurables are incredible. He's athletic, his work ethic. I like him, that is his motor. You know what I mean? That's why I like the most about him. And obviously he was averaging 20, shooting great from the floor, but it's what he was able to do on the other side of the ball. Seeing him at Carolina, running the floor, catching lobs, getting chased down blocks, like those type of things. Like, that's what the Bulls are missing, a player that can be like that, not taken away from how great of the season that Giddey had and Matas had, but they kind of need someone that can do that, but also be a star in the same light. It's kind of hard to do those things.
Yeah,
I think he can bring that intensity to Chicago. And, a lot of people comparing him to like a young Kevin Garnett and, the way he plays, we'll see what that looks like. 'Cause I think he can be, but that is very big shoes to fill, all defensive. And like you mentioned, I could foresee him being that. But if he could get his 3-point shot down consistently, and he shot well from the 3 in college, so we'll see what that looks like. But his touch, his feel around the basket, it's just I'm so high on Caleb Wilson that the fact that I was able to get him, I'm super excited for my dynasty. And the Bulls, I see what y'all are building over there. I think he's going to be a problem, man. Shout out to Carolina. We got one of them ones. We got a top 4 pick, and can't complain, bro.
100%. I'm gonna go fill up this water bottle, but you tell them about the Clippers pick. I'll be back.
I got you. So, like Z just said, we're going to the number 5 pick. We have the LA Clippers via the Pacers drafting Keaton Vogler out of Illinois. He's a 6'6" guard, average 19 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.2 steals, 47% from the field and 40% from the 3-point line. We have his comp. I think if y'all remember correctly, we said he's a slower pace Tyrese Halliburton, and his low end is Andrew Nembhard with less defense. But the Clippers, man, they get one of the most complete guards in this draft at 5. Vogler is a versatile big guard who can shoot off the catch, create off the dribble, and defend multiple positions. LA needs a new face of the franchise, and Wagler's two-way ability and shooting efficiency makes him the perfect fit for a team trying to build around a high IQ perimeter scorer. Obviously they have Darius Garland already as their main guard, their one guard, getting Keaton Vogler here as a combo guard, 6'6". He can be your point guard, but I feel like with the Clippers, if he's starting at least, he would be the 2 guard, and he's a great fit for them. And what the Clippers are trying to build. Obviously, we still don't know what's going on with Kawhi. We'll probably figure that out very soon. But pairing, Darius Garland with another guard, Keaton Vogler's ability, and putting them next to Benedict Mathurin, John Collins, a good youth movement that they got going on. Like I said, don't know what's going on with Kawhi, like I mentioned, but having someone in this guard spot that you can potentially have, build with DG and Vogler. I think I like that. That's a good little backcourt duo.
He was interesting to me. This was the first pick of the night where I was like, don't really know what the Clippers do here.
Yeah.
Because we're about to talk about some other guys after Vogler that could have went in this spot, even with Darius Garland there. But I do like how they drafted for fit. CJ and I spoke about that. He's the best shooter in this draft, hands down. Mm-hmm. He went for 46 points in one game this season, just got super hot. But his ability to score from 3 is very useful for the Clippers, and we know that they need shooting. We know the Bradley Beal thing didn't work out too, so they need a 2 guard. We understand that, but given where LA was, they shouldn't even have this pick, right? They got very lucky with this pick. It just fell out of Indiana's hands. Unfortunately, it was top 6 protected, and of course, it was the 5th pick or unprotected. Or how was it? What was it? Was it top 6 protected?
I think it's top 4 protected. And they barely missed it.
So, it was top 4 protected. Yeah, they barely missed it. That's what it was. So, I misspoke. It was top 4 protected, and they barely missed it, ended up not being able to get a pick. So, we know the Pacers are disappointed. But
absolutely,
to take Vogler here, it makes sense. He's the best shooter in the draft. They need shooting, especially at the 2 guard spot. Mm-hmm. And, it's a pretty perfect fit to pair him alongside Darius Garland. But in my opinion, I'm going to give this a B. Mm-hmm. There was some guys on the board who I believe will be better than him. No offense to Keaton Vogler, but he seems like more of a system player. I just have to see him with the ball in his hands. I don't know if he'll get a ton of opportunities for that. And he doesn't need to necessarily be that. He can just come in the NBA, be a catch and shoot guy. They thought Concanipple would be a catch and shoot guy, but because he could shoot so well, I said this on the last podcast, it opens up the floor a little bit more when you're shooting 40% from 3 and guys got to close out really fast on you. And that's potentially what Keaton Vogler could be. So I like the pick for the Clippers, but it's not a home run. So I'd have to give it a B.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm right there too. I feel like this is where we had a mock too, but this is when the draft started to get to the point where it's like, okay, I really top 4 kind of knew who was going to go. This is when the draft started to get, okay, who is going to get drafted first? All right, Keaton Vogler now. And now from this point on, it's kind of like you could have chose any of these players, and it's just about who the team liked more. Who do you like more as, a GM or a coach or whoever. So, right there with you. Wasn't that like, I don't think this is like a franchise corner piece. Could be a huge contributor to a winning team, but I didn't think it was altering in a sense. I think he'll be a good player.
Yeah, franchise altering.
Yeah, I think he's a good piece for a potential championship roster if he gets to that point. But nothing crazy, nothing like, oh, the Clippers are a number 1 team in the West or anything. But I think it was for their fit for the team that they're constructing. I think he was a good fit. Like you said, could have seen any of these other guards with them, and I think they would probably be just as good. But for the fit, for his shooting, his size too, putting him next to DG, think he'll help him out. Think it's not the worst pick, but nothing crazy.
No, yeah. And props to the Clippers. They were still able to capitalize on this pick. CJ and I have spoke about them too, but getting Darius Garland in the building was a huge W. Just getting a little bit younger gives him a lot more options with depending on what happens with aspiration and Kawhi Leonard, like you brought up earlier. But moving on to the number 6 pick, man, we had the Brooklyn Nets. They drafted Mikael Brown Jr., who I'm very high on. He's about 6'4" and a half, 6'5". Had a great combine, lit it up. We spoke about it on this show, but he averaged 22 points in college. He also had another 40-point game as well. But he's a nuclear scorer who can really light it up from anywhere, CJ. The reason the Nets took him was his ball skills are very top tier and quality for his size. They think he can be a very good ball handler and effective in the pick and roll. He can also shoot off the dribble and off the catch. He doesn't necessarily need the ball to be effective. The one downside to his game is the defensive liability, and at times he doesn't seem to be that aggressive. I think Mikael Brown Jr. Could be a top 3 pick in this draft when he's playing at full confidence, but he doesn't always seem to do that. So the Nets do have some work to do on his tendencies, and sometimes he shoots poor jumpers. They're just bad shots, contested mid-range shots, and that he'll have to get that out of his game. But I believe the Nets reached here. They must have seen something in the draft process. We talked about the combine, but I didn't do any research on if he had an individual workout with Brooklyn. I'm assuming he did, and he did well. But this is another great pick. I'd have to give it an A too, in my opinion. This is a place where you can reach on somebody like Mikael Brown Jr. People forget, but on the U19 USA team, he was like the best player on that team, and that included AJ DeBonsa and Peterson. So he's proven himself at a high level already. He's one of the best scorers in this class, and I'd argue from like a pure scoring, it's Mikael Brown Jr. like between me and you, but like real scoring, 5-on-5 scenario, it's Darren Peterson. That's just my opinion, or AJ. But like in the street, I think Mikael Brown Jr. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like he would give
just
you
getting a bucket.
Like going to get one, no refs, no nothing. It's Mikael Brown Jr. So the Nets were able to again stack up on another guard, and why not? CJ said you got to take best available here. We got another cat that's coming up who I like, who plays defense, and we'll speak about him in a couple picks. But Mikael Brown Jr. is just one of the best scorers in this draft. So for Brooklyn, it's hard to pass up somebody who can score at that level alongside Julius Randle, alongside MPJ and Yegor Denham and everything that they're doing over there. So I like the pick. If I had to give it a rating, I'd say it's an A.
Yeah, I like that pick too, man. And this is where I was saying, all these guards. This is where it went from. We had Darren Peterson, the only 2 guard, but the top 4 picks were all forwards, and then this is when it gets all nothing but guards. So. Mikael Brown Jr., bro, obviously Louisville. I think he was injured a lot this season, so we really didn't get to see what he could have been when he was fully healthy. But the glimpses that we shown throughout this college, basketball season, he was incredible. Like Z said, one of the, probably the best scorer in this draft class. But just seeing what he can do, obviously for the Nets, you got a lot of guards last year. Obviously, but at this point in the draft, you got dealt with the 6th pick. You kind of just got to take your best available.
You got to take it.
And this draft just happens to be guard heavy. So we'll see what that looks like. I think Mikael Brown Jr. has a potential to be that, 20-point per game scorer as well, with in this rookie class. But what is it going to look like with at Yegor Denham, Traore, what is that guard rotation? Are they going to have him start from the beginning? They'll probably have him come off the bench to start the season, but probably work his way into a starting lineup. But I'm excited for it. I think it's cool seeing a lot like the guard room that they have.
He'll start.
He'll start.
I think Yegor, Mikael, the 3 spot will either be probably MPJ, Randle, or on Sharp.
Yeah.
He'll go.
Yeah, I was say, that's
Traore
I was say
play.
He's a number 6 pick, right? So he's probably gonna get the.
Well, it just. I mean, I'll be honest. I think you bring up a good point. Like Traore wasn't horrible.
No.
He was serviceable. They also, Yegor Denham is their point guard.
Right.
They're not moving off of that, so he's gonna play the 1.
Yeah.
You think it? So you bring up a good.
You think it would be one of those to where they have it kind of inverted to where like their point guard is the big guard and then their shooting guard is like Mikael Brown? Like, would you ever think they play like that?
There's a chance, yeah, because you do bring up. I mean, what is Diego Denham? 6'6",
Yeah,
almost
he's like
6'7", I
like
think.
6'7", something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, 6'6".
yeah,
So yeah, that's an interesting talking point. I don't know if he'll start. I want to say he does, but we'll see what the front office wants to happen.
yeah,
We know Randall and MPJ and Sharp will start,
for
and
sure.
Yegor.
Yep.
I'm assuming Mikael Brown Jr. will start, but
Right.
maybe not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So
Obviously, one of them is going to come off the bench, and I guess that's kind of off-season files. The main thing we'll talk about because I feel like that's an interesting. It's number 6 pick. Traore was what like he was a lot. Was he a lottery pick last year? I don't remember how many picks they had, but I'm assuming he's a first round pick. So
not a lottery. He's the
like
back half. He's in
20th
the
or something.
20s.
Gotcha.
Yeah, in
But
the
yeah,
20s.
I would give it like a. You gave it like a. You said like B plus.
A.
Yeah, I'll give it like
A.
a B plus. I'm right there with you.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
high.
it's
a good
pretty.
grade.
Yeah, like he has a potential to be a really good guard in this draft.
Oh,
and
man.
in the league. So excited to see what that looks like. But going into this next pick, man, it's your hometown, your home city, Sacramento Kings.
Sacktown.
They ended up drafting at the number 7 pick Darius Acuff Jr., point guard out of Arkansas. Feel like we all know about him. We know what he was able to do in the SEC tournament, the NCAA tournament, seeing his ability to create off the dribble, one of the best scoring small guards in the league in the college basketball. I was super high on Darius Acuff, especially after the tournament. Seeing what he pressure moments, it's one of those players where he doesn't shy away from those type of moments. He faces it straight on. He's able to attack their defense and get to his spots. He looks like he's kind of like not as efficient from offensively as like the Darren Peterson and the 3-level scoring, but his ability to get to the rim and create in the mid range was very impressive for how undersized he is, So I'm excited to see what that looks like for him in Sacramento because we know, they're trying to figure out their roster that they're trying to, build for the future, and having a point guard at the helm, I think it's a great way to go about it, especially if they end up keeping Sabonis. I wouldn't be mad at it now, especially since you have a guard. But we talked about it before we started recording, Z. It's like the DeMar DeRozan, who we wouldn't mind seeing stay, but the Zach LaVine contract, that's something that kind of get off of that and have Acuff get the keys to this roster. Because if he's your number 7 pick, if this is your future, you should have him be able to run the offense through him and build around him, because I think he has that potential to be one of the best guards in this league with his ability and his playmaking as well. And he has that dog mentality, like you see him, he's not like really smiling, not saying that you do, but you have to,
right.
You got to act like tough, but I think that's just how he is. I think he grew up in like Detroit, so he has that mentality. He has that, Detroit basketball, he's going to play with physical, play aggressive, and I think Sacramento needs someone like that to build around their roster. And I'm excited to see what that looks like. Not expecting Sacramento to win a lot of games, but I'm expecting a big year from Acuff, man. I think it'll probably be an up and down season. You'll probably have moments where he's cooking, averaging 20, and you might have a month where he's averaging 13 on not a great efficiency. But I think that is the type of player that he is. He's going to be a volume scorer, and I think once he gets that efficiency down, he's going to be a problem. And once Sacramento builds a team around him, they're going to be a issue, man. He's one of the great guards at this draft.
Yeah, bro. And you had brought up an interesting point. I just think they got to move away from somebody to make room for this cat, because you brought it up, the mentality. I mean, we saw him drop like 38 against High Point. We know he was the NCAA during March Madness. He was one of the one of the players of the tournament alongside Cameron Boozer.
Mm-hmm.
We saw what he did in the SEC championship as well, but his archetype measures out to a Jalen Brunson's type of scorer. Mm-hmm. We just saw what Jalen Brunson was able to do as a lead guard on a team. And it's Sacramento, I said it to you, but they got new hope because of this pick.
Yep.
It's not too often you're able to draft somebody who boosts your off the court status, who obviously helps you on the court, but just the mentality. He seems like he's a winner. He wants to be great from day one. It'll be interesting to see how they build around him. Obviously, they got Sabonis, Keegan Murray, they got Levine and DeRozan, so they do need a one. But he's going to come in from day one, have a pretty big, sizable role, one of the bigger roles in this rookie draft class, potentially bigger than like a Mikal Brown Jr., who we were just talking about. So a lot's going to be on his shoulders as an undersized guard. We know the inconsistencies on defense. We see it. That was the same thing that we heard about Jalen Brunson. So I just got to see it. I think Darius Acuff, there's a massive, exciting question mark, not like a question mark like Darren Peterson. It's more of like, oh, what is this? What is this dude going to turn out to be? You know, and just at his size and the way that he scores the ball. I'm excited, bro. So I think it's a great pick. If I had to give it a rating, this is another, I did say A-. This is another great pick. There hasn't been a ton of bad picks at the top half of the draft, and there really wasn't any like horrible picks. There are a surprise pick. There's a surprise pick here and there, but there's no bad picks. So definitely one of the better drafts that we've had in the last 10 years. But moving right along, going on to number 8, this was the Atlanta Hawks via the Pelicans, obviously an unprotected 2026 first round pick that they traded in 2025 in that Derek Queen trade. This was that pick. The Hawks selected Kingston Flemings from the University of Houston. Kingston Flemings, a two-way guard, the guy that I was excited to talk about. I'm really high on him because of his two-way capability. He's obviously able to score, but playing for Kelvin Sampson, you're going to have to be able to guard. And he was able to average a couple steals a game and, like 1.8 steals a game. Hopefully that's able to translate to the Hawks defense, who has Dyson Daniels, who has other players who can guard at an extremely high level. And he's going to fit alongside what they're trying to do there. And now it's clear, they re-signed CJ McCollum. He's going to be there to help teach him, be his vet. They're going to expect a lot out of Kingston. Somebody I was thinking of like a Cason Wallace type of guy. If he's able to really round out his 3-point shooting and be effective in that manner, he could give you 30 or when needed, 5 points, 4 steals, maybe hit one big time 3. That's the type of player that I see Kingston Flemings turning out to be. So I'm excited for his development. If I had to give it a rating, this is a A as well. This was the best player available on the board, and Atlanta didn't miss here. His measurements at the combine were a little weak. He does have a 6'3" frame. He's 180. Doesn't have a massive reach or anything like that. It's not super ideal to be a top tier defender in the NBA, but I'd argue his mentality, like the dog, we're always talking about the motor. Some of that stuff's not going to show up in the box score, but even his box score numbers looked great for his size. But the effort, I think, is going to be there with Kingston Flemings from day one, and he's going to be able to contribute, bro. I don't know if he needs to be like having starter minutes either on Atlanta. Atlanta's already a pretty solid squad, so he'll be able to like get in certain spurts and get in where he fits in and kind of learn the ways of the NBA. So, not expecting him to win Rookie of the Year or anything crazy. That would be crazy if he did it over AJ and Darren. But
that would be crazy.
he's going to be able to hit threes. He's going to be able to guard. And you always have a place on an NBA roster if you're a good 3-and-D guy. So I believe Kingston Flemings is going to be able to be one of the better guards in the NBA at that.
Yeah, he's fell perfectly for the Hawks, you know what I mean? Because they were able to trade with the Pels. Pels were very high on Derek Queen. Queen wanted to move up. They traded away their future draft pick that ended up being this pick, and I think that's exactly what, the type of player that they were missing. They obviously had Nickeil Alexander-Walker playing the guard spot, CJ McCollum as well. I think getting Kingston Flemings, at this 8 spot was perfect for them. They're missing, someone else to run the offense for the second unit or even for their primary unit. You know what I mean? They have moments where, we saw their offense look very stagnant. I feel like he has the ability to not only just run the offense, but like you said, be a catch and shoot guy. He can play make as well. And for his size, he is a good defender. So it's like you said, I like that comp of Cason Wallace, honestly, because I can kind of see him being that type. We saw Cason Wallace this year take that leap offensively. I think he developed to get to that point. I think Kingston Flemings coming out the gate has that ability to score 30 points in this league. So I like that comp because I can kind of see that as well. And even if he doesn't, like you said, get in the 4 steals, maybe a block, and then hitting a big time 3. Like that's the type of player he's gonna be. So get the Hawks getting him, adding more depth to that guard spot. They're already pretty good at the forward spot, and kind of figuring out where everyone's fitting in. And they got a lottery pick, and they beat the Knicks 2 times this year, and no one else could say that. So vibes are high for them. You got another good, one of the best guard available at the time, but one of the best guards in this draft anyways. So very high on Kingston Flemings. I got him on my dynasty as well. So, I'm a ride for anybody I draft, but I like his potential, see what he's going to be able to do. And I think he's going to make some big time plays for the Hawks this upcoming season.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, I Kingston Fleming's out of Houston, man. I really liked him. So I wasn't able to get him on my dynasty like you. I got some Acuff and Mikal, but still, man, just I think his two-way capability is going to be something you want. So we'll see what Atlanta, how they can utilize him, because they already got guys who can guard well.
Yeah, just add into that defense, man. I think we've kind of seen teams prioritizing that, honestly, defense, and then we'll figure out the offense as it goes along. But
yeah,
going into the number 9 pick, this was my first surprise of this draft.
Is a surprise.
I don't know how you felt. I think you just mentioned it was a little bit of a surprise for you as well. But Dusty May is in the building for the Dallas Mavericks. They have the number 9th pick. For everyone that doesn't know, Dusty May was a coach of the Michigan Wolverines who just won a championship. With the number 9 pick, the Dallas Mavericks selected Marez Johnson Jr. out of Michigan. We talked about him. He's a great forward, 6'10", average 13-10, almost 2 blocks, shooting 58%. This was a reach, in my opinion. Even in our mock draft, I believe he was he the lowest
14 or 15?
Was the lowest out of the 3 Wolverines that we had on our mock?
He was after Stambach.
Gotcha.
And Lendeborg and Mara. So
gotcha.
He's the lowest out of the
lowest
Wolverines.
Out of the 3. He ends up jumping to be the first taken out of those 3 players. Not taking anything away from him. I think he's a great player. I mean, we mentioned it in our mock draft before the draft. He was very super light on his feet. I think he was one of the most athletic. Like, he did great in the combine. All the measurables looked great.
The cone
drills. Yep. But this, I don't know. I just felt like they could have got someone else. I agree. Needed. Not saying that you don't need bigs, because we loaded up on bigs. The Spurs loaded up on extra backup bigs. But like for the Mavericks, they have Derek Lively,
could have taken Mara.
Daniel. You could have drafted Mara. Yeah, it's very questionable, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I hope Marez Johnson does great in the league, but I don't know. I don't see why he jumped the other guys, I guess, and that's kind of what I'll take away from that. And it's not even. I just think there was better players available. So I don't know what the Mavs are trying to do. I know Ime he's in the building now, so he's switching things up, but I don't know. That's kind of how I felt about it. Wasn't really altering.
Yeah, Masai Ujiri. You know what? He showed his hand, I think. Because you brought it up, Dustin May, seeing him in the building got him excited. I'm sure they spoke about the pick, and I'm sure May must have said something, and this is where it's cool to be media and speculate. But hey, take this cat. I saw him. I have the biggest belief in Morez Johnson. Mm-hmm. We don't know what he said, right? So CJ brings up a good point. I was shocked here. I have to give it a C. When Mara, Burries, Ament, Steinbach, there's a couple guys on the board who, in my opinion, should have went to the Mavericks before Marez Johnson Jr., but no slight to his own. This guy's athletic. Mm-hmm. He'll be able to fit in next to Cooper Flagg. It's a C+ for me, though. It's nothing that is going to blow us away. I don't believe he's going to be a generational talent. A lot of those guys that we just spoke about have chances to be generational talents, or at least all-stars. And Marez Johnson Jr. is going to be a shock to me if he ends up being, a franchise-type guy, or somebody that they can build around for the next 10 years or so. I believe, just in my opinion, Ade Mara would have fit really nicely with Cooper Flagg and Kyrie. you could have figured it out later with Derek Lively, maybe traded him. Who knows? Got rid of Gafford, but yeah, I didn't love the pick either, bro.
Yeah.
So I don't blame you. I believe Masai Ujiri, the guys in the front office in Dallas have a lot of work to do, and we'll talk about it a little bit more on the offseason file because they're outside of Cooper Flag. They don't building around Kyrie's not really a viable option anymore, and so the Western Conference, especially now with this trade that we'll get into in like 10-15 minutes, but it just makes the West impossible. So I don't know where the Mavericks will get in, but definitely disappointing, man, because can't go back. The 2026 draft was so loaded with talent, and you came up short. So yeah, this is been the worst grade for me so far. Definitely a C plus, CJ.
Yeah, I'm like a C, bro. Honestly, like I think
wow.
I think he could
I
be
don't know.
good. I just don't know, like
he might be like a Najee Marshall, like, and that's good.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I would have rather gotten a guard like Braden Burry's here. I would have been like, oh,
okay.
You know what I mean?
So number 10.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, number 10. Milwaukee takes Braden Burries, and to CJ's point, Braden Burries is on the board. At 18 points a game, shoots 48% from the floor, 39% from three. He was getting to it at Arizona. We know Milwaukee. This was one of the picks that they needed to hit on. They knew they were going to get a Ant, cool, but this was their own pick. They knew Giannis was gone by this time, so they had to grab somebody who could score the ball, and Braden Burries could do that. Again, he's a top 5 scorer in this draft. This is not a miss for me. This is an A pick for me, and he's a potential two-way guard. Measuring at 6'5", he has better measurables. The wingspan is a little bit bigger, a little bit longer. Pause, but he's going to be able to fit into this roster immediately and make an impact from day one. And Morez Johnson Jr., the reason there's question marks from CJ and I is because we don't know if he's going to be able to make an impact from day one, like a Braden Burries, like Ademar, Mikel Brown, Darius Acuff, Dabonsa, Peterson, all these guys that we've been talking about. So that's what made that pick a little bit interesting when guys like Braden Burries were still on the board. But now, the Bucks are going to be able to pair him with Hero and Jaquez Jr. We're going to see what that looks like in Nate Ament, but they're going to have a bunch of young guys running around. He's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. He's going to be able to develop a lot. So I like this pick. I'm giving it an A or B plus or A minus B plus, like in that range. I think this was a great pick here.
Yeah.
Especially after Morez Johnson Jr. jumped, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's why, because I was assuming Braden Burries was going to get drafted by the Mavs, because I was like, oh, they need a guard. Kyrie obviously is getting older. Maybe you could have someone, be mentored underneath him, build him up, this and that. But they ended up getting a big. So yeah, the Bucks getting this, and after the trade that they made the other night, this is a great pick for them. They got the best player available in my eyes, and added to the youth movement that they already have going on. So they're gonna have a lot of young players running in Milwaukee. I think it's going to be exciting, bro. Like Braden Burries is, one of the best players that were in this draft, hands down. And he has, like you said, he has that ability to be good on both sides. He averaged 18 points and shoots up pretty efficient for his size, and, being able to defend multiple positions as well. I think that's why he's going to be so deadly, and why I think, him being on the Mavs would have been better. But that being said, I would give it like a B plus as well. B plus, A minus.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I like that pick.
It's a good pick.
Yeah, really good.
For sure, bro. Like he's athletic. He can shoot, and then you just need shooters now. You got to have shooters. Morez Johnson Jr. is also not a great shooter. So I don't know. No slight to him, but yeah, just an interesting pick at 9, and it bumps everybody up a spot or a couple spots depending on how you look at it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, going into the next pick, the 11th pick, I think we had this player go into my squad originally, but in the actual NBA draft with the number 11th pick, the Golden State Warriors select Yaxel Lenenborg out of Michigan University. 6'9" forward that, do it all forward for the Michigan Wolverines in their route to the championship this year. Golden State takes Lindenberg at 11 and gets a senior who finally put it all together this year at Michigan. He's a physical big forward with good length, solid rebound instincts, and developing three-point shot as well. The Warriors need front court depth, and Lindenberg is NBA ready right now. And 3 Michigan players are in the top 12 is a testament to how loaded that program was this year, man. And like I just mentioned, I think him being on Golden State is a perfect fit. I feel like what they have going on, Draymond has been the anchor to their defense. Jimmy Butler's getting older. Lindenberg is also older, but I think it's what they need in this moment. They're trying to win now. They get a player who, like I just mentioned, is kind of a do-it-all forward. I wouldn't say is as great defensively as Draymond is, but better offensively and has a better, is a bigger frame as well. So you get to add a little bit more size to that front court and pairing him next to, Draymond. And then if they run Jimmy, we saw what a lot of the young talent that the Warriors have. I think that he's a perfect, piece for them to do well now. And that's what they're trying to do since, Steph Curry's in the building. I think that's what we've realized, that, they're going to try to win regardless. And I think this pick for them is good. I like it. It's probably, I give it a B. Yeah.
Yeah.
B plus.
Again, Mara was available.
Yeah.
You need a center.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, I like Yaxel Lindenberg, but was not super high on him. I'm worried about the jumper. I think he's an athletic forward and he's going to be a great defender. And I can see why Dunleavy went with him, but I don't even know if you saw this. So there was an altercation with Dunleavy and a couple of the front office people over this pick.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did see that.
They were not, they were torn. I'm sure they were talking about Mara. Some people in there probably wanted Mara.
Yeah.
And it makes more sense to take him there. Again, they need a center desperately. They're super undersized. You add a 7'3" body next to Curry. It's not like another guard who's going to fill up, or potential wing who's going to fill up the logjam on offense. And I just don't love it. It's another C+ for me. I think he's a great player. It was really cool to see his mom and, what we saw at Michigan too, right? I mean, he can rebound. He's obviously athletic. He could score the ball. I think I have the averages right here. He's averaging, 16 a game. So, but for what the Warriors need in their future, it just seems like another missed draft pick, which is just so unfortunate. I mean, especially when Nate Amint's on the board, and they took like Wiseman, they took Kuminga and Moses Moody. That's one of the better picks, but Pajensky even has been like, he's okay.
Yeah.
He's not great.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of work to be done in the Warriors front office. And if I was in their front office, I'd be a little disappointed with this pick, especially with Mara still on the board, who, I'm about to talk about in a second, but it's just unreal the Thunder were able to grab him with the next pick at 12. But, no slight to Yaxel Lindenberg. Hopefully he can improve the 3-point shooting. We know if you play minutes on the Warriors, you have to be able to shoot, unless you're Draymond Green, unless you're just a Hall of Fame tier defender, which I don't believe that Lindenberg will be. So, this was a C+ for me. Similar to Morez Johnson Jr., a bit puzzling for the time. But neither here nor there. The draft is over. They made their decisions. Obviously, the front offices were excited to take these guys. So no slight to them. Just I don't really see the fit. I guess I do, but not more than Mara or some other people who are on the board. Right. But moving on to number 12, man. You got the OKC Thunder, man. Your boys. They acquired this pick from a trade. From the Clips, obviously, but they used that pick on drafting a Mara, who fell here a lot, in my opinion. We had him mocked going to the Atlanta Hawks, so he dropped 4 or 5 spots. Mara averaged 14, 10. But the thing that he does so well is he defends. We know he's going to be a great defender in this league, and OKC desperately needs that. And unfortunately, with Chet Holmgren disappearing in Game 7, I'm sure Sam Presti wanted somebody else who could be give him some relief, give him some breathing room, not have so much pressure on Chet to be the rim protector, to be somebody who has to guard Wemby 24/7. Like, it's very smart here to take not even a risk, just take a flyer. Because honestly, he fell here. So it's not like the Thunder are risking a ton here. The upside is massive. They said that he's been working on his 3-point shot, which is, again, super useful and something that the Warriors could have used. But the Thunder are able to grab a Demara here, who, in my opinion, is a top 8 player in this draft. So very sneaky move from the Thunder here. Some people may not expected them to take the big man from Michigan who averaged a double-double. They don't really need that, right? But I think given the way that they've drafted in the past, they've usually drafted best available, and Sam Presti doesn't know different here. So I really like this pick. If I had to give a grade, it would be an A. Since Mara fell so far. The Lakers had an A too. We took Cameron Carr. Cameron Carr fell. That's an A, pick. We're not going to talk about him on the show, but that's another example of finding value a little bit later. And the Thunder were able to find value a little bit later in the lottery with Ade Mara. The measurables at the combine were awesome. His standing reach is awesome. The 3-cone drill was awesome. Shooting was awesome. I'm sure he's not going to struggle with free throws either, which is something the Thunder are very keen on. They like to get to the line. They like to shoot their free throws well. It's just a good pick. So I got to rate it an A.
Yeah, I rated an A too, man. I think it's like you mentioned, this is the pick that we have from the Clippers, and it fell. It was in the lottery, but it kind of fell towards the end. But for where we were at, what we needed, what we saw we struggled with in the playoffs against the Spurs, we need to add more depth to the center position. And I'm not taking anything away from Chet and what he was able to do all year, but like you said, it adds a little bit of relief for Chet, for iHeart, so we don't have to just rely on them to guard Wemby for a full 48 minutes or whatever, 40 minutes that he's going to play in a game. You can rely on someone else who's a bigger body. I think, like you said, his standing reach is like 9'9", and he was a great where the cone drills. He's agile on his feet. He's getting the 3-point shot down. It's another piece to our roster that we've been able to, he's actually going to be able to play this year, thankfully, but it feels like the past 2 seasons we haven't had our rookie player, play right then and there. So Sorber's in the building too. So Sorber, Mara now, that's going to be a good youth from our bench in our front court. So it's going to be exciting, man. I'm excited. I think that pick was great. Like you said, I give it an A as well, adding more depth to the center position. Chet can kind of... Obviously, Chet's going to be good on the defensive side of the ball, but I think with Mara, he is there for defense. We're not really relying on him to score a lot, so I think him getting those sparing minutes coming off the bench, it's going to be great for us, and having just more depth at that position, especially when we got to go against the Spurs, sadly. But I like it. Like I said, A for me as well. We haven't really missed on a lot of picks, thankfully, but I think this is best available for us, and it's what we needed. So can't complain, man. I feel like we fell right to us, so it's not really a risk, and we're getting probably the best center in this draft at 12. So
yeah, bro. I mean, Mara's the best center in the draft. If he can figure out a way to become a part of the offense, just figure out a way to get his shots, get his touches. It's going to be tough to find touches on that Thunder team.
Yeah,
he's going to be dangerous, bro. So we'll see. And we know this next pick as well went to Milwaukee. Obviously, Miami drafted this next guy, but a lot of teams are in interesting spots now after this draft. This is one of the best drafts in the last 10 years. That's why CJ and I are going through it for such a long time.
Right. Yeah. And with that being said, the 13th pick, like ZD just mentioned, it was drafted by the Heat, but they got traded to the Milwaukee Bucks. With the 13th pick, the Milwaukee Bucks select Nate Ament, a forward out of Tennessee, 6'10" forward, average 15, 6, 2, 44% from the field, and 38% from 3. Miami grabs Ament at 13th and reportedly trades him to Milwaukee, like we just mentioned. Ament is a highly skilled offensive player with a reliable outside shot and good size at 6'10". He has some athletic limitations, but his shooting touch and feel for the game are legitimate. The Bucks end up with 2 first-round picks and use this one on a stretch big who could space the floor. Not around Giannis anymore, but
nah, I know. But
yeah.
yeah. I mean, Nate Ament can shoot. He's pretty good, bro. We'll see. He's a pretty big question mark for me. I
was about
have
to say,
to give it a B.
I was about to say I'm not too like. I knew how he played, and obviously he got injured, but didn't get to see him for a full season. But I feel like he was in the mix, kind of like like a Cole Pete type of like before the season started, they were top 10 picks and they kind of ended up falling. So I don't know if that was because of the injury or just because of how loaded this draft class was, but didn't really see
a mixture of both.
Nate Ament play that much, I feel, this season.
Yeah, I mean, me either. He was hurt. I think it's more about what he did in high school.
Mm-hmm.
He was very good in high school, very good for teams. Yeah, I mean, and 6'10", bro.
Yeah.
You can't really pass on that. They need some sort of size, and he can be like a 4, but he's gonna play the 3.
Mm-hmm.
He's a little bit more gifted with his handle, so I like it. I think for me, the 3-point shooting is the best attribute he has. 40% clip, but
you see him
the frame.
You see him like a MPJ
is a little weak.
type of.
Potentially, he's just got to put on some weight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's super skinny. Yeah,
I think he's skinnier than MPJ. MPJ is like 6'8", 6'9", with the like 250 or something, 240.
Mm-hmm.
Like he got a little bit of weight on him, but he's definitely added some too. I know out of Missouri he was a little skinnier, but Nate Ament definitely. I guess you could say that's a decent comp. I think the 3-point shooting is similar.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Porter Jr. is very good at 3-point shooting, but that's why the Bucks took him here. Sort of similar to Mara, he just fell too much to not take the best available. And they don't necessarily need another power forward, but obviously without Giannis there, it doesn't hurt to have more front court depth. But they could have taken a couple other guys. Christian Anderson, who went to the Hornets, Abuka Okore, who I thought they might grab. They do need a point guard desperately, so it was a little bit interesting to see them go with bigger. But I mean, KPJ is he's nice.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if he's a franchise guy, but he's somebody who could play the point guard for you for the next 2-3 years, right? So I like it. If I had to give it a grade, it's probably a B.
Yeah, I probably rated it like a B too. Like, I don't think it's a bad pick, but like you said, maybe could have had a guard or could have added a little bit more somewhere else. But like you said, 6'10", and he could shoot almost 40% from 3. You can't really beat that.
Yep. But the last team to pick in the lottery, the 14th pick, the Charlotte Hornets. And we were exactly right with this one, CJ. Hans Stambach from Washington, Germany. The German big man, just a great rebounder. We know averaging about 13 points, got 8 boards at Washington. He's a great interior defender, and they're going to pair him next to Diabate, Kalkbrenner, and we'll get into what Charlotte did today that makes this pick a little bit more interesting. But on draft night, it was a very good pick. But now looking at, obviously, LaMelo Ball getting traded, which we'll get into later, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it now. I don't know how he's really going to score the ball. They don't really have a facilitator of LaMelo Ball's caliber anymore to give him the rock. So I don't know if he's going to make that much of an impact on offense. But defensively, I like it. But I'd have to give it a B. In my opinion, it looks a little bit better with LaMelo Ball on the court when he's feeding, and working in the pick and roll. But even Kalkbrenner and Stambach, all of their bigs take a pretty big usage hit because they're not going to have those easy looks at the rim. So definitely he's high upside. I think they took him for the defense, and they already have that front court depth so that they can afford to reach here. They also got Christian Anderson later. So they had a guard who can shoot the 3. Christian Anderson's a top 5 shooter in the draft. So They still did extremely well in the draft. Overall, they probably had like an A draft, but this pick specifically is like a B or a B plus.
Yeah, I would probably give this one a B. Looking at it whenever it happened, probably would have rated it a lot higher because of what you just said and having LaMelo be that, setting him up and helping him, become to his full capability that we know he can be. But even without him, they got a good defender, added more depth to their front court. Can't really be mad at it. Like you said, like a B though. But if LaMelo was there, probably B plus, A minus type of thing. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I'm right there with you on that one too.
Yeah, bro, for sure. And it's a perfect segue, to get into the transaction that happened on June 25th. And you can read it off for the people officially.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
that's why people click. So let's give it to the people.
Yeah, man. So this happened this morning. For everyone that doesn't know, it's June 25th. LaMelo Ball is traded to Minnesota from Charlotte with Josh Green. 2028 pick. Charlotte has a right to swap with Minnesota. 2033 unprotected. 2029 first round pick. Charlotte has a right to swap with Minnesota. 2030 first round pick. Charlotte has a right to swap. And 2029 second round
or
pick.
pick swaps.
2032 second round pick and a 2033 second round pick for Naz Reid. Z. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, man. It's the Timberwolves again. Going back to the point we made at the beginning of the video, but the Julius Randle trade we spoke about for 10 minutes, and this follows that up with that same notion and talking point. When you go to the conference finals twice, and then last year you flame out, the questions start to arise. Are we good enough? Can this team win a championship? And the answer was no for the Timberwolves front office. Now, I'm sure they talked to Ant about this before they made the trade, but they asked him, man, like, who do you see yourself fitting with, and who do we want? And Shams broke the news yesterday that LaMelo Ball was in trade talks with a couple teams like the Raptors and the T-Wolves. But they were able to get a deal done today, and I could see why the Hornets did this. For the Hornets, I will give it an A. They were able to maximize getting a first-round pick and then 3 first-round pick swaps, which is just an unbelievable price to pay for LaMelo Ball, on top of getting Naz Reid, who, again, is going to help them with their front court, but he can score.
Yep.
They also have the cap space to pay him. They also get a $41 million trade exception, which is the largest in NBA history, meaning they could use $41 million free in their in their balance sheet to use on another player. Mm-hmm. So they have $41 million to use on a couple players or one player. And Charlotte did a really, really good job with this return. So this year, it's going to hurt them. They re-signed Kobe White to a 3-year, $74 million deal.
Yep.
I'll talk about AR's deal here in a second to end it. But, yeah, A for the Hornets. The Timberwolves, though. So now they have LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards. Ayo Dosunmu got an extension as well, another $100 million player.
Mm-hmm.
They have no flexibility now. All of their picks are gone. If they don't win a championship, they're screwed, bro. And I just don't know how. My next thought is moving Gobert. That's the only realistic option, is trading him and trying to find a way that you could turn him into some sort of value, which now is pretty much at the lowest it's been in a long time, because people know he's not a scoring big. He's not going to be that effective on offense for you. But I don't know, man. I think it's a little bit more exciting than it actually is, because on the court, LaMelo Ball needs the ball in his hands, no pun intended. And Anthony Edwards can play off the ball. So we'll see how that goes, but he doesn't like to. I know he prefers to be on the ball, get in actions, especially come off down screens, do pick and rolls off those down screens. And we know LaMelo Ball just is such a high usage player. And he also, he played 75 games last year, but how realistic is it for him to stay healthy for 82 games and play 30 minutes? We know he's going to have to play 30. Yeah, it's not very realistic. So for the T-Wolves, it's a B. It's not going to kill your team. No. I still think y'all will be competitive. Y'all will be in the playoffs.
Yep.
But I'd argue it's the same place you were last year. You would probably lose to a Spurs team who's more filled out, who has their roster all covered in all areas. You know, their bench is great. They have great bigs. They have great guards. Like, they're not just LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards versus everybody. And that's what I'm getting to, man. I didn't really, I understand it, but I don't see how it's going to pay dividends. So I believe they just should have thought a little bit deeper about paying Naz Reid, trading for Randle, and that was the big mistake. But this is not necessarily a mistake, but it'll be interesting to see how these two guys coexist. And obviously, this is what the people want, man. This is it's probably going to be one of the bigger trades that we've seen again in the last 10 years. I didn't expect LaMelo to be traded, especially after this season that he just had. But now Con Knipple, Brandon Miller become the franchise focal points, you could say. And the T-Wolves have a new star on their hands who becomes a focal point for them.
Yeah. It's like you said, I feel like it on paper, and if you talk to people about it, it sounds a lot more exciting than I think it's really going to be. I think it is going to be exciting, but at the end of the day, like you said, I don't think it really shifts the timeline for the Timberwolves. I feel like they are in the same spot that they were in before. You just happen to have LaMelo Ball now. Like, y'all got more exciting offensively, and then what you had in Julius Randle, Naz Reid, like your depth and like your other positions, you don't have that anymore. So now you have a one of the most exciting point guards in the league when he's healthy, and great playmaking. Pairing him next to Ant, that sounds great, but I just don't think it's going to take you to the championship, Western Conference championship. I feel like it's a second round exit. I think y'all would be exciting, be a great young team to pay attention to in the regular season.
Highlights.
But like, I don't think it's
like
going
for some highlights.
Yeah, like you catch like them on the top 10 plays probably every night they play, but I don't think it's going to translate to winning a championship. And I feel like that is what their goal is when they have Anthony Edwards, and who's been to back-to-back, 2 out of the last 3 conference finals. You're trying to get back to that, and I don't think this trade really gets them to that point. We'll see what it looks like. I don't want to be a hater. I'm just trying to be, logical and think of how they're really going to mesh together. I think it will be fun. It will be exciting. They could potentially be averaging 25 points each, but I don't know what that looks like in the win columns for them this upcoming year, and obviously with the Charlotte Hornets had an incredible year last year. LaMelo did his thing, took a step back in a sense. And I think they saw that and said, well, maybe we can't get a player of LaMelo's caliber, but we could get someone that can be someone who can make up for that and be someone who can run a team, and maybe we don't have to pay them as much, but we're really going to prioritize Brandon Miller, Khan, and now Christian Anderson. Who was the other guy they just drafted? Sorry,
Kobe White
and
Hans Steinbach.
Like, they have these young pieces to where I feel like they were willing to take this chance, get for some first round picks, get a player a Naz Reid caliber that you said can score. So they just are bolstering up their offense with Kobe White. So we'll see. I'm excited. I think the Hornets won this trade, in my opinion. I think they got a lot better.
I agree.
They got like a A. Timberwolves, wouldn't say they got worse or better. They stayed the same for me. So I, like you said, maybe like a B.
Yeah.
Like, they get LaMelo Ball, and shout out to y'all, because I did not expect that to happen. I didn't expect LaMelo Ball to be on the Timberwolves. So that duo is going to be exciting, and I know that is going to be something that we'll probably talk about all upcoming year. But I just don't know if it does what their ultimate goal is, and that's to win a chip. And it sucks to say that, because he is a great player. He's a star. Pairing him next to another star, like, that should be exciting. I don't know. I can't see them being very successful in the playoffs, at least. Regular season, maybe, but playoffs, I just don't know if that roster, it's lacking a lot of depth. I mean, you talked about it. You have him on your team, DiVincenzo, right now. He's going to be injured for a majority of the season. You have Jaden McDaniels, and you have Rudy Gobert. Everyone else is, Terrence Shannon Jr., Juan Berger, like a lot of players that still have a lot to prove that I just don't think they have enough. But I think it's going to be an exciting regular season team. Just don't think it's going to get them to the mountaintop that they've been trying to chase
Yeah,
since they made
I
it to the
agree, bro.
the West Conference Finals.
I agree, and that's the whole goal of why we make these moves. To your point, CJ, if it doesn't really move the needle, obviously we may have done something previous that messed that up. But we'll see if they re-sign LaMelo Ball too after his contract's up in a couple of years, and we'll see how that looks as well whenever we do the offseason files for Minnesota. But yeah, one of the craziest. It was just an unexpected trade because his name was thrown around in rumors, and then it went quiet, and then yesterday it started to pick back up again, and obviously he was traded this morning. So just crazy, man. Charlotte, I'm sure y'all are hurting a little bit, but you're excited for the future. And Minnesota, I know I've seen it on Twitter. Y'all are turned for sure. So we'll have to see, man, whenever we get to the offseason files for both of those teams. But I think I'm gonna wrap it up with talking about AR's contract extension. I know we'll finish it out with the Lakers stuff, but AR 4 years, 185. I did speak to CJ about this yesterday, but I love AR. I love him, man, and I get why we paid him a decent amount with that player option, that $53 million player option. I'm not going to say it's an overpay. I just hope he plays into that contract, mainly in the playoffs. It's no slight to AR, but I do believe he's more of a first half type of player in the NBA, meaning the first half of the season he's cooking when his legs are fresh and he's healthy. But I believe what makes a player great is like game 98, you got a sprained ankle, you got a couple knacks, and you still go out and get 30. Like this a Shea game 7, like when things aren't perfect, what does that look like? That's usually why we pay you the big bucks. And so far for AR, it hasn't always been the case. We've seen him do well in the playoff, some playoff games, one-off games. He's had 25, 30, but a couple of years ago, the Minnesota series was abysmal. The injury versus even last year, the Rockets series was okay. The Thunder series wasn't that great. So he still has a lot to learn, especially in the playoffs, and hopefully he can play alongside Luka Doncic for the entirety of this contract, which gives him the ability to be Austin Reaves. If Austin Reaves goes to the Nets and he's forced to be the hub of an offense, I don't believe you'd be getting that efficiency at close to 50, 40, 90 that he was able to get last year. But saying that, Rob Pelinka, he has a massive decision to make with LeBron now, depending on how he wants to reshape our team. And I know this isn't about Braun, but paying AR it puts some stress on our team, especially in the future. So what we do now is really impactful. That's why drafting Cameron Carr was huge for us, because he's going to be able to play on a rookie contract and not take a bunch of money. But he's deserving of this, man. Second round pick, worked extremely hard from OU. He's one of our farm raised people, and we traded away a lot of those cats. Jordan Clarkson, Josh Hart, you see a lot of them. Some of them are NBA champions around the NBA that have been in the Lakers organization in their draft system. But Austin Reaves was one of those diamond in the rough type of players. Whoever found him got a raise, may even be retired by now type of thing. And just seeing his growth, man, is something that I'm very proud of. And overall, for me, I'm not mad at it. You could see it as an overpay. I just hope he plays into the contract. And I won't say it's an overpay until it's an overpay and we have confirmation that consistently in the playoffs he's not going to be able to rise to the occasion. But until then, for me, this is like a perfect number, less than $200 million. That's what I was hoping for. Came in $15 million less, so that's good. And outside of the player option, which was a bit questionable to me, it's like a lot of money for that, for him to decide kind of what his future is. But hopefully by then we have a ring. But yeah, man, he's just got to stay healthy, bro. He's got to stay healthy during this contract, and it just gives us more time to figure out what we're going to do with LeBron, which I don't have any insight for you guys on that. I really don't know what LeBron's doing. He's hanging out with the 2016 Cavs team. It looks like he's retiring. He's got a gray beard. who knows what's going on with Braun? You asked me that yesterday, and I said I don't really know.
Yeah.
I hope he's back, but can't really control that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I talked to you about it a little bit, but I'm right there with you, bro. Like, I wouldn't say you overpaid. It's kind of hard for me to say that. I know that's oh, did you overpay? Did you underpay? Whenever a
Right,
player's
right.
contract gets released, that's kind of what we're expected to as media to talk
Consensus, yeah.
about. But I don't know. I like it. I think Austin Reaves is an incredible player. We saw what he was able to do. Like you said, I am concerned about if he can do it for 82 or, like you mentioned, 90 plus game season, in the playoffs, postseason time. That's what I want to see him take that leap. I think that's how a lot of Laker fans feel. That's how you feel. You just expressed it, but that's what I'm wanting to see, because I've seen him do incredible for, like you mentioned, the first half of the season, and then that kind of he gets injured, it kind of tails off. Come playoff time, you're trying to ramp it back up. Wasn't really able to play
Right,
as much as you would want him to. Now that you're
right,
getting paid, you're kind of expected to do that. Like you said, the contract, the $41 million a year that we're paying you, we want to see what that looks like deeper in the season, in the playoffs, to see if you're worth that, and I think that's when I'll come on this podcast and say if it was overpay or not. I feel like that's a cop-out answer, but I feel like he deserves it. He's shown
sure.
us that he is a great player in this NBA, and been able to drop 50 points, been able to get you a lot of dubs for the Lakers this year. So I feel like he deserves it. Like you said, second round pick, didn't really have a guaranteed contract. Now you're getting paid $40 million. I feel like Lakers, y'all do a great job of finding players like that, building them up through your farm system, you drafting second round, getting undrafted players, whatever it may be. I feel like y'all always have a knack of finding talent like that. And it's crazy because y'all are the Lakers. You could probably get anybody that you wanted to,
Whoever,
but
yeah.
you're capitalizing on how deep these draft classes are and guys getting overlooked. So shout out to AR, man. Like I said, I won't give him that overpaid tag yet. I do think it's a lot of money, but it also has it for you as a Lakers fan. Now you have Luka and AR for the next few years, and I feel like that's great building blocks. What can y'all do to get them to the championship? And I feel like that's the main priority for y'all. That's the main priority for a lot of these teams. What can we do to get to beat the Spurs, this year? And I think that is great building blocks. Now it's just Cameron Carr was a great pick, like you just mentioned, another one of those guys that fell to y'all in the draft, and y'all are starting to get the pieces now, man. I think AR, Luka, when healthy, are one of the best backcourts in this league. So can't take anything away from them. And
Scoring backcourt last year.
that's what I'm saying, bro. You can't
Like,
I
dang.
can't be upset that the Lakers paid him, paid AR, because
No.
if y'all didn't, someone else would have. And
Right.
who knows, Nets or whoever would it be? Obviously not now since they got Julius Randle, but who would have been if y'all didn't, re-sign him? Who would have been the next team? But I think it's a great fit. Seeing him with Luka, obviously we saw a little bit of what that looked like at full strength, and y'all were one of the best teams in the Western Conference. So I'm not upset at it. I get why some people would say you overpaid him because of what we just mentioned about the playoff success and injuries, but we'll see. He has some time to prove it, but it's time now. AR, you got your bag.
Yeah,
You're next to
facts.
Luka. Now we gotta see.
It's
So
time,
yeah, it's
bro.
time. It's time. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
like it's time to go in the playoffs and do everything we can to be even more valuable than what that number is on the sheet.
Yep.
Because after you get your contract, you can't be complaining like, oh, I didn't get paid. Oh, I didn't get this. He's getting 45 to 50 M's over the
Yep.
next few years, and that's a lot of money from our paycheck. And yeah, we just got to get to the end goal, bro. So
Yes, sir.
that's it for me on that topic of conversation. Hopefully, I come back with some more info once Braun resigns.
Yeah. Yeah. No. That was my first question to you right after I had saw he signed. I was like, hey, where's Braun going? And you told me, you're like, I really don't know, bro. We just got to see. So excited, brother. See what the rest of this offseason has for us. But was there anything else you want to let the audience know before we head out?
Nah, man, this was a banger. Appreciate you for hopping on, kind of on a whim,
Of
but we were able
course.
to get this done. We appreciate all the viewers and all the love. Lots of views on some recent podcasts, lots of engagement on the shorts, trying to get those out. But we just appreciate y'all, man. And like I said earlier, you can check the recap of the draft on the website, and that'll change kind of over time. Some of the articles we'll put out will be transaction centered. So like some of the trades that happen, we'll get some articles up on that. But yeah, I appreciate y'all's time, and hopefully the offseason has a lot more interesting stuff to offer.
Yeah, bro. That's it for me. You know, like ZD just said, we appreciate y'all for listening and watching this episode 3 Man Weave. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time, man. Peace.
Peace.
3 man.